when you speak about Ayurveda and alchemy, most of you people are aware about the name Nagarjuna, who is a scholar in alchemy. But when it comes to the Siddha part, you have a scholar called Bogar. And what I have mentioned here is like three texts that has been available in the name of Bogar. One is Bogar Elayiram, then it is Bogar Karpavidi, and it is Bogar Sarakku. So these three texts actually speaks very clearly about various chemistry and Vaipu Murai. Vaipu Murai in Tamil actually means synthesizing naturally acquiring substance in an artificial way. For example, if you have a plant and it's not available at that particular season, there are methods to synthesize it in an artificial way. So that is what the Vaipu Murai means. And these books also speaks about astrology, and there are certain things which actually speaks about mechanics too, as in certain instruments which moves on its own. Those kind of instruments are also mentioned in this particular text. So I just want you guys to just remember this name Boger, who is quite equivalent and who has a very great contribution in the field of chemistry from the southern part of India. In this session, I'm just going to mention only 4 different areas where the chemistry have been employed in a very detailed way. This is the first one. Here, what I have been mentioned here is the 2 different methods of purification of sulfur. So, the sulfur, it's been used in various formulations. So, in most of the cases, wherever you use mercury-based formulation, it is mandatory to use sulfur. So, before using sulfur for the mercury-based formulation, it was supposed to be purified. So purification here, it doesn't mean getting a homogeneous form of sulfur. It actually means making it more biocompatible. So what I have mentioned here is like 2 different methods of purification. The one which is mentioned here in the left, right? In this method of purification, what we do is like we take a raw sulfur, then we heat it along with butter, and then immediately we quench it in the fresh milk. So what happened is like the color of the sulfur changes from almost like bright yellow to some kind of greenish yellow in the end. So here what exactly is happening is like the sulfur, it actually exists in different allotropic forms. But the most stable allotropic form of sulfur is orthorhombic sulfur. That is the crystalline form of sulfur, which has been shown in the figure number 1. So that is how it is stable, but when you heat it above 94 degrees, it will melt and it will turn into the monoclinic form of sulfur. But that monoclinic form of sulfur is highly unstable. So because once you again cool it down, it will again revert back to the orthorhombic form of sulfur. But exactly in this purification, what happens, you are adding few herbal ingredients to it. Maybe you can consider it as like an impurities, and these impurities actually helps to remain the sulfur in the same monoclinic form even after you are cooling it down. So the next process, this is also a different type of purification process that has been mentioned. Here what happens is like you are heating the sulfur again and you are quenching it immediately in a mixture which is made of curd and henna leaves. So you're just grinding the henna leaves and you're making into a paste, and you mix it with the curd, and you're quenching the molten sulfur. I mean, you're heating it, you're melting it, and again you're quenching it immediately in this mix. So what happens here is like you get a different kind of sulfur with a different nature. So this sulfur, what happens is like it will have a elastic property. That is, you'll be able to just pull it like a paste, and this remains in the same state for a minimum period of 3 to 4 days. So there is something called plastic sulfur. In modern medicine, the plastic sulfur, how they prepare it is like they'll heat the sulfur around some 96 degrees and they immediately quench it in the cold water. Even in that process, the plastic sulfur will remain in the same state only for a very short duration, maybe some 3 to 5 minutes, not more than that. So after that, it will again revert back to the same orthorhombic form of sulfur, that is the crystalline form of sulfur. So these 2 methods has been mentioned in the text, and it's also in the usage now for the purification of sulfur. So what I want to mention here is like why do they just want to make it like a normal form of orthorhombic sulfur into monoclinic and plastic sulfur? There comes the real question. So the main reason is like they are more biocompatible and it can be easily eliminated from our body when you use it in the form of monoclinic sulfur. That has already been communicated in this particular journal too. So here, one more thing which I want to convey here is like, though the allotropes of sulfur has been discovered in a very later years, the way they have utilized this sulfur in different forms clearly mention that though the name allotrope has been discovered later, but the actual form of these modifications and everything existed already.